The Black Dahlia. The Phantom of Los Angeles. Morning on Norton Avenue, Los Angeles. The 15th of January, 1947. The morning fog still lingered over the yellowed grass of Limert Park. It was a cold morning, a rare chill that seeped into the bones of residents accustomed to the warm sunshine of Southern California. The City of Angels was still half asleep, not yet washed clean of the garish makeup and cheap liquor of the previous night. Betty Bersinger pushed a baby stroller along the west sidewalk of Norton Avenue. Her daughter, Anne, only 3 years old, babbled nonsense, wide eyes taking in the world. Betty pulled her coat collar higher, quickening her pace toward the shoe repair shop. She disliked this area. It was an unfinished real estate project, empty lots, overgrown with weeds scattered among modest wooden houses, creating a desolate, eerie atmosphere. As she passed the vacant lot at 3825, Betty's eyes caught something white among the knee-high weeds. She squinted. A mannequin, she thought. Someone had tossed a fashion store mannequin into the trash. It lay there, stark white, broken at the waist, arms raised above its head in a strange pose, as if surrendering to fate. But something was wrong. Curiosity or perhaps instinct made Betty stop the stroller. She stepped closer, carefully brushing past the dew-soaked weeds. The distance closed. 3 meters. 2 meters. The mannequin was not plaster. Its skin was pale from blood loss, but it was human flesh. Cuts and bruises became clearer, and the face— Betty froze. Her breath caught in her chest. The face had been slashed from the corners of the mouth to the ears, forming a grotesque, eternal smile, a Glasgow grin mocking the world. She did not scream. Terror had stolen her voice. Betty spun around, rushed back to the stroller, and pushed it frantically toward the nearest house with a telephone. Only one thought echoed in her mind. That's not a mannequin. Dear God. Harry Hansen and the clean scene. Police sirens tore through the morning calm. Harry Hansen, a veteran detective of the Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, stepped out of a sleek black car, a half-burned cigarette wedged between his yellowed fingers. Beside him was Finis Brown, younger but equally hard-edged. The scene before them was controlled chaos. A few officers struggled to cordon off the area, but curious onlookers were already gathering. News spread faster than wildfire in Hollywood. Hansen crossed the yellow tape and approached the body. He had seen hundreds of corpses in his career: gangland executions, bloody crimes of passion, horrific accidents. But never, not once, had he seen anything like this. The young woman's body had been completely severed at the waist hemicorporectomy. The two halves lay a few inches apart. The strangest detail, the one that chilled Hansen's spine, was the absence of blood. Too clean, Brown muttered, voice trembling despite his effort to stay composed. Harry, look. Not a drop of blood on the grass. She wasn't killed here. Hansen nodded, crouching for a closer look. He washed the body, he said, voice gravelly. Drained the blood, scrubbed every inch, then posed her like some sick piece of art. The girl's jet-black hair, once carefully curled, now clung to the grass. Her blue eyes were shut. Hansen studied the slashed mouth, the ligature marks on her wrists and ankles, signs of prolonged torture hours, maybe days before death finally released her. This was a professional, Hansen concluded, or at least someone with anatomical knowledge. The cut through the spine was precise, right through the disc. Not everyone can do that with a butcher's knife. And he wanted us to see it. Brown added, pointing at the position of the arms. He placed her here, right by the sidewalk, to display her. Suddenly, the screech of car brakes echoed. Hansen grimaced. He knew that sound. The vultures. Before forensic staff could arrive, the press vans descended. The Los Angeles Examiner, the Herald Express, the city's most bloodthirsty tabloids. Reporters swarmed like vultures scenting carrion. Camera flashes exploded, blinding officers struggling to maintain order. Aggie Underwood, the notoriously aggressive reporter from the Herald, charged past the police line before being stopped. Hey, Hansen, was this a mob hit? Aggie shouted, notebook waving. Or has the lipstick killer returned? Get out, Aggie, Hansen roared. Show some respect for the dead. But the reporters didn't care. They trampled the grass, jostling for the best shot of the mutilated body. Hansen knew that within hours, the horrifying image would grace the front page of every Los Angeles paper, alongside stories of movie stars. In the chaos, one reporter phoned the newsroom, fabricating a story to trick the victim's mother into giving information. It was the beginning of a brutal media war, where truth was twisted and the victim's dignity trampled without mercy. Hansen stared at the anonymous girl's face. Who was she? Where did she come from? And what monster did this to her? At that moment, he did not yet know the girl was Elizabeth Short, and the name the Black Dahlia was about to become the darkest obsession in American crime history. The fateful fingerprint. That afternoon, at the Los Angeles County morgue, the stench of formaldehyde could not mask the odor of death. Forensic pathologist Frederick Newbar conducted the autopsy. Hansen and Brown watched grimly through the glass. Cause of death: cerebral hemorrhage and shock from trauma, Newbar announced. She was struck hard on the head. But the other injuries? God. She was forced to ingest feces. Mutilated. Hansen turned away, lighting a cigarette despite the ban. He needed something to steady his nerves. We need an identity, Hansen said. Without knowing who she is, we can't find who killed her. Technicians took fingerprints. Despite the body being soaked and scrubbed, they managed. Luckily, sound photo technology, the precursor to the fax machine, allowed them to send the prints quickly to FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. Less than an hour later, the phone rang. Hansen picked up. Hansen speaking. The operator's voice was urgent. We have a match, detective. The victim has a record. Who is she? Name: Elizabeth Short. Age 22. Arrested in Santa Barbara for underage drinking. She also worked at the Camp Cook Army canteen. Hansen hung up and wrote the name on the whiteboard. Elizabeth Short. The name sounded ordinary, but behind it lay a story of shattered Hollywood dreams, fleeting romances with servicemen, and a burning desire for fame. Elizabeth Short, Brown repeated. Betty, we have a name. Now, let's find her life. But they did not know that uncovering Elizabeth Short's life would lead them into a labyrinth of lies, mysterious men, and Los Angeles's darkest secrets. Hollywood dreams and mysterious men. The birth of a name. While Elizabeth Short's body lay cold in the morgue, another monster of Los Angeles was awakening: the press. At the newsroom of the Los Angeles Herald-Express, telephones rang like machine gun fire. Reporters didn't care about justice. They cared about circulation numbers. And nothing sold better than sex, death, and mystery. A seasoned reporter named Bevo Means was digging for information at a pharmacy in Long Beach, a place Elizabeth often visited. The pharmacist remembered the girl with jet black hair, who pinned flowers in it and wore all black outfits to highlight her porcelain skin. She liked the movie The Blue Dahlia, the pharmacist said. Because she always wore black, the customers here jokingly called her the Black Dahlia. Bevo Means froze. The name rang in his head like a jackpot bell. The Black Dahlia. It was sensual, dark, and tragically poetic. The next morning, the headlines splashed across every paper were not Elizabeth Short's body found, but the Black Dahlia case, beauty cut in half. Hansen slammed the newspaper onto his desk at the LAPD, cigarette smoke swirling around his furious face. They've turned her into a comic book character, he growled. Now every lunatic in this city will call in and confess just to be famous with that name. He was right. The name Black Dahlia transformed a brutal murder into an urban legend, and legends are harder to solve than reality. The suitcase of broken dreams. A lead brought Hansen and Brown to a locker at the Greyhound bus station. Inside, they found Elizabeth Short's earthly possessions. A small suitcase. Brown, wearing gloves, carefully opened it. No money, no jewelry, just neatly pressed cheap clothes, black lace lingerie, and most importantly, scrapbooks. Hansen picked one up. Inside were clippings of movie stars, magazine photos, and letters from servicemen. Look at this, Hansen pointed to a professional portrait of Elizabeth. She smiled, eyes full of hope. Beneath it was a note. Elizabeth Short, actress. She never acted in a single film. Brown sighed, checking records. Not even as an extra. She was just one of thousands of girls who came to LA chasing dreams, only to end up waitressing or selling raffle tickets. They found love letters, dozens of them. Elizabeth, Betty, as she called herself, had a strange allure for men. She enchanted them, made them want to protect her, but seemed never to give herself to them. She was a tease, Hansen observed. Not judgmental, but thoughtful. She lived off the kindness of strangers. A dinner, a place to sleep, a ride. She drifted through their lives like a ghost, taking what she needed, then vanishing. And among the papers, one name stood out: Robert "Red" Manley. The last man seen with her alive, the red-haired man. Robert Manley, 25, a married salesman, trembled in the interrogation room. His fiery red hair contrasted with his pale, paper-white face. "I didn't kill her," Manley shouted, sweat dripping down his forehead. "I swear to God. I liked Betty. I really liked her." Hansen sat across, eyes sharp as a scalpel. "Tell it again, Red." "January 8. Where did you pick her up?" "San Diego," Manley stammered. "She asked for a ride to Los Angeles. She said she was afraid." "Afraid of someone. Who?" Hansen pressed. "She didn't say. Just that he was jealous. We drove to LA, stopped at a roadside motel. But nothing happened. I slept on the chair. She slept on the bed. Betty, she said she was saving herself." Manley swallowed hard. "On January 9, I dropped her at the Biltmore Hotel downtown. She said her sister was there. I left her at 6:30 p.m. That was the last time I saw her. I went back to my wife." Hansen and Brown exchanged glances. Manley passed the preliminary lie detector test. He seemed weak, lovesick, used by Betty for a ride, not a butcher capable of cutting a body in half. But the detail about the Biltmore was the key. The phantom at the Biltmore and the missing week. The Biltmore Hotel, a grand castle in the heart of Los Angeles, frequented by the elite and movie stars. Hansen stood in the lobby, crystal chandeliers casting light on the marble floor. He imagined Betty that fateful evening, dressed in a black suit, flower in her hair, walking in with false confidence. Witnesses, clerks, and guests confirmed seeing her. "She sat in the lobby for hours," a waiter said. "She kept looking at the door, then at her watch. She made a few phone calls, but no one answered." The truth emerged. There was no sister at the Biltmore. Betty had lied to Manley to send him away. She was waiting for someone. A secret lover? A photographer promising her a role? Or her killer? At 10 p.m. on January 9, the last witness saw Elizabeth Short leave the Biltmore, walking south on Olive Avenue, vanishing into the foggy night. From that moment until the morning of January 15, when her body was found, 7 days passed. 7 days, Brown whispered, staring at the city map. "Harry, where was she for a week?" "No one saw her. Not a soul." Hansen shivered. The autopsy revealed her stomach was empty, but she had been bound and tortured for a long time before death. "She didn't go anywhere, Finis," Hansen said coldly. "She was with him. He kept her for 7 days, fed her fear, toyed with her like a cat with a mouse before deciding to end the game. The killer had a private, hidden place, secure enough to hold a screaming woman and torture her without neighbors noticing. He had a car to transport the body. He had medical knowledge to cut it cleanly. And most terrifying, he was still out there, lurking somewhere in the vast city, perhaps reading the papers and laughing at the police. The phone on Hansen's desk rang again. An anonymous letter had arrived at the Examiner. It was cut and pasted from magazine letters, reeking of kerosene. Its message was brief. "This is Dahlia's property." Enclosed were Elizabeth Short's address book, birth certificate, and social security card. The killer had spoken. The cat and mouse game had officially begun. The smell of gasoline and cut-out letters, The 24th of January, 1947, 9 days after the body was found, a parcel arrived at the offices of the Los Angeles Examiner that morning, looking ordinary enough, except for one thing: the acrid stench that seeped from it. Detective Harry Hansen slipped on gloves, carefully using tweezers to remove each item from the yellowed envelope. The reek of gasoline hit his nose, so strong it burned his eyes. "He washed everything in gasoline," Hansen rasped. "He knows we'll look for fingerprints. He's mocking us, Finis." Inside were Elizabeth Short's belongings: her birth certificate, social security card, a few business cards, and most importantly, a black leather address book embossed with the name Mark Hansen, a wealthy nightclub owner, not Detective Harry Hansen. On the envelope's face, the sender hadn't written by hand. He had cut letters from newspaper headlines and magazines, pasting them into a short, cold message like a ransom note from a cheap detective film. "This is Dahlia's property. Letter to follow. Letter to follow," Brown repeated, shivering. "He thinks this is a serialized story. He wants attention." Returning personal effects was a psychological act. It showed the killer hadn't murdered for robbery. He saw these items as trophies, but now sent them back to prove his power. His message was clear: "I kept her. I know everything about her. And I'm giving her back to you, piece by piece." The Black Book and the Maze of Men. The address book became both the LAPD's greatest hope and its worst nightmare. Though soaked in gasoline, technicians salvaged most of its contents. Inside were the names of 75 men. Elizabeth Short wasn't a prostitute. She was a collector of men. She kept in touch, flirted, asked favors, and recorded everything meticulously. But one detail caught Hansen's eye. Several pages had been torn out. He ripped out the pages with his name, Hansen concluded, running his finger along the jagged edges. Or the name of someone he wanted to protect. A massive manhunt began. LAPD interrogated thousands of men. Anyone who had danced with Betty, bought her a drink, or even spoken to her at a bus stop was dragged into the investigation. They found Mark Hansen, the nightclub owner, whose name was on the book. He had let Betty stay at his place weeks before her death. He had motive. He wanted her in his bed. But she refused, even while exploiting his generosity. Yet Mark had a solid alibi. Day after day, the suspect list grew, then shrank. War veterans with shattered minds, sex offenders, disgraced surgeons, all were considered. But the real killer seemed like a phantom, always one step ahead. The haunted house on Franklin Avenue. Amid the chaos of leads, one name began to rise in Hansen's suspicions. A name that made even hardened cops uneasy: Dr. George Hodel. Hodel was a brilliant surgeon, highly intelligent, infamous for his debauchery and wild parties at his mansion. Hansen and Brown drove to Franklin Avenue. Before them loomed the Soden House Hodel's residence. Unlike any other home in LA, it was built in the Maya Revival style, resembling a bizarre temple, or more accurately, the gaping mouth of a monster waiting to devour its prey. "Look at that entrance," Brown whispered. "Like a shark's jaw." They suspected Hodel for many reasons. He was a surgeon, capable of performing a hemicorporectomy, a procedure requiring anatomical precision to cut through the spine without shattering bone. He had a secret clinic, and he knew Elizabeth Short. The LAPD did something unprecedented. They bugged Hodel's house. For weeks, Hansen sat in a surveillance van, headphones on, listening to sounds from the Maya temple. Jazz music, arguments, footsteps, and sometimes muffled screams. Then, on a stormy February night, Hansen heard Hodel's deep, arrogant voice, as if he knew someone was listening. "Suppose I did kill the Black Dahlia. You can't prove it now. You can't talk to my secretary anymore. She's dead." Hansen ripped off the headphones, eyes wide in shock. Was it a confession? Or the taunt of a paranoid madman? Before Hansen could secure an arrest warrant, Hodel vanished. He abandoned the house, left his family, and fled to Asia. Wealth and influence had bought him escape at the last moment. The hunter's obsession. The case began to collapse. March 1947. The media frenzy subsided. New crimes, New Hollywood scandals filled the front pages. Elizabeth Short's name was pushed to the inside columns, then disappeared altogether. But for Harry Hansen, the case never ended. It became a tumor in his mind. He stopped sleeping. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Elizabeth's slashed smile. He saw her pale body lying in the dew-soaked grass. He wondered what she endured during that missing week. Hansen spent nights in the archives, rereading files, searching for overlooked details. He wandered the streets Betty had walked, sat in the bars she had visited, as if hoping her ghost would appear and whisper the killer's name. Colleagues grew worried. "Harry, let it go," the captain said. "It's a cold case. She was just an unlucky girl in this city." "No." Hansen slammed the desk, eyes bloodshot. "She was a human being. And the man who did this is still out there. He's laughing at us. If we forget her, he wins." But the brutal truth was, Hansen was chasing a ghost. Leads dried up. Witnesses changed their stories. Physical evidence was lost or contaminated by the negligence of the era. Los Angeles, the city of fallen angels, had swallowed the secret of the Black Dahlia's death, burying it beneath layers of glitter and concrete. Hansen stood on the Hollywood hills, gazing down at the city lights. He lit a cigarette, the night wind blowing smoke into his stinging eyes. He knew he had failed, but he also knew, as long as he breathed, he would never stop searching. The Black Dahlia never wilts. The empty desk. 24 years had passed since that fateful day on Norton Avenue. Los Angeles had changed. The dusty roads of Leimert Park were now paved smooth, lined with rows of model suburban houses. Jazz had given way to rock and roll, and Hollywood had dressed itself in new layers of glitter. At the Los Angeles Police Department, Detective Harry Hansen was clearing his desk. Today was his retirement day. He had aged greatly. His hair was snow-white, deep wrinkles carved into his forehead, like trenches of time. The hands that once held a gun to chase criminals now trembled as he packed his personal belongings into a cardboard box. Hansen paused when he picked up a thick, yellowed case file. On the cover, the faded typewriter letters read, "Case 47 to 1014, Elizabeth Short." He ran his finger along the edge of the file. In his illustrious career, he had solved hundreds of cases, sent dozens of killers to prison. But this was the one case he could never let go. His greatest failure, the obsession that gnawed at his soul for more than 2 decades. "Still can't forget her, Harry?" asked Phineas Brown, his old partner, now aged himself, as he placed a hand on Hansen's shoulder. Hansen shook his head, smiling bitterly. "How could I forget, Phineas? Every night I see her. She asks me why. Why did I let him get away?" George Hodel, suspect number 1, had died in Asia years earlier, taking his secrets to the grave. Other suspects had also passed away or vanished into history. Justice had never been served. Hansen sighed, sliding the file back into the cold case's cabinet. The drawer closed with a dry thud, like the lid of a coffin shutting for the last time. "Sorry, Betty," he whispered into the void. "I tried my best." The immortality of a tragedy. Though Hansen retired, the Black Dahlia case did not die. Instead, it was reborn in another form, cultural legend. In the years that followed, countless books, films, and theories emerged. Everyone wanted a piece of Elizabeth Short. She was written as a prostitute, a gold digger, an innocent victim, or a symbol of deadly allure. The truth of who she was lay buried beneath layers of fiction. In 2003, Steve Hodel, son of Dr. George Hodel, and a former LAPD detective, published a shocking book. In his father's photo album, he found images of a woman who looked strikingly like Elizabeth Short. He presented chillingly logical evidence that his own father was the killer, but it was far too late. There was no one left to arrest, no trial to be held. Elizabeth Short had become the Marilyn Monroe of crime. She was more famous than any role she had dreamed of in life. But the price of that fame was blood, unbearable pain, and the stripping of her dignity even in death. The killer had been right. He had turned her into a grotesque work of art for the world to gaze upon forever. The grave in Oakland, far from the noise and filth of Los Angeles, At Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland, California, lies a modest, flat grave among green lawns. The headstone reads, Elizabeth Short, the 29th of July, 1924, the 15th of January, 1947, beloved daughter. No mention of the Black Dahlia. Here, she was not a case, not a sensational headline. She was simply Betty, the girl who loved going to the movies. Betty, the girl with the radiant smile, who liked to wear flowers in her hair. Betty, the daughter who left her family in Massachusetts chasing the dream of a promised land only to discover that land was full of wolves. The evening wind swept through the cemetery, rustling the old oak trees. The air was peaceful, a stark contrast to the foggy, blood-stained grass of Leimert Park. If her spirit lingered here, perhaps she had finally found the peace Los Angeles could never give her. She had come home, back to the earth, far from camera flashes and prying eyes. Darkness beneath the sun. Los Angeles today remains dazzling and ruthless. Tourists still flock to the Hollywood Walk of Fame, stepping over stars etched with celebrity names, unaware that beneath their feet lie the blood and tears of thousands of young women like Elizabeth. Short girls who came here only to be chewed up and spat out by the city. The Black Dahlia case still rests in LAPD archives, forever an unanswered question. A reminder that evil sometimes goes unpunished. That beneath Hollywood's blinding lights, darkness always lurks thick, deep, and endless. And sometimes, on fog-heavy nights, people still say they feel a chill passing through Leimert Park, as if the ghost of the girl in black still wanders, searching for the missing piece of her life, searching for justice that will never come. The story of the Black Dahlia is not just a murder case. It is a story of shattered dreams. It is the story of Los Angeles. The Black Dahlia is dead, but her legend will live forever like a poisonous flower blooming brilliantly in the garden of memory and fear. Thank you for following me to the very end of this tragic case. Who do you think was truly the killer? Share your theories in the comments. I'd love to read the deductions of all the detectives here. And to make sure you don't miss the next journey in search of truth, don't forget to give this video a like and hit subscribe. Your support is the greatest motivation for the team to keep producing even better stories. See you in next week's case.